Hello guys! Welcome back to Not Just Mecha. It's Marco here, and today I'm starting my journey into Kill Team with a super quick but extremely painterly speed painting project. Every year, as soon as the temperature drops and the leaves start turning yellow, I get the gaming itch. And since I'm foreseeing a lively, nerdy winter, I want to add a couple of mainstream heavy hitters to the roster of indie skirmish games I play. Necromunda and probably Dead Zone are next on the list. But even when I'm painting with a clear gaming intent in mind, and especially when the models are for my personal collection, I like to handle the project as a painting exercise and a way to try new things. So the general challenge here was in trying to fuse all the major visual bits of the box art scheme. Believe it or not, I never painted a Tau or a Tau related model, with the energetic, painterly feel of the illustrations, wrapping the whole thing in a light speed workflow that makes me able to choose a warband in the morning and be ready to play with it in the evening. I want all the attention on the colorful Vespids, and I need to cut time wherever I can. So I keep the bases super simple with a heavy layer of alien, muddy, rough ground. Plus, I'll be completely transparent here. I often improvise warbands for agnostic games, with models from different collections, so less characterized, low-key bases facilitate the visual blend. And of course I start priming directly in colors, because why waste an entire step on 11 miniatures when I can jump directly to the second one? All you need is a set of tough, grubby paints with a focus on mid to darker tones that can act as first steps of the value climb to the lights. My first idea was to start with a desaturated dark blue to maximize the temperature and chromatic contrast with the orange local tone. But I think green works better to introduce a more unsettling, insectoid feel, still remaining with a foot in the cold spectrum. These sculpts have a lot of extremely different volumes, with a variety of relative heights and depths, so here I cannot simplify the chromatic and value flow to the bare minimum of just shadow and light, as I often do on simpler or smaller models. And I need to introduce a bridging element, to connect more gently the extremes with literally extra midtones, that in this case take the form of a desaturated yellowish tone from the mid part of the slice of the color wheel that makes the warm official scheme. Be careful to maintain the previous colors with every new step. Even if I'm cutting every possible corner, at the end this is just layering, and you need to see every layer to make the contrast and the volumetric effect work, especially when you are omitting a bunch of intermediates. Thanks to the yellowish connective tissue, now I can move to the orange feel in a more organic way. An important note here, this color is labeled as fluorescent orange, but it's just an extremely light, desaturated orange with a bunch of white in it. The best way to describe it is a very light, sunny skin tone. And before noticing this tube in the drawer, for this step I was literally looking for a pre-made, saturated skin color. For procedural needs that you'll understand better later, my priority here is to push the lights to the maximum values possible, still retaining an impression of their tone. So an orangey, luminous skin tone is the perfect proxy for the final, proper orange. And for the same reasons, I close the foundational stage with a light ivory. I insist more on the white weapons and equipment, that being properly white, need an even lighter base, but I use it also to bring out the lighter elements of the bodies, like wings, underbellies and the volume of small high spots. But before using a final pinch of pure white, I quickly set the main colors of the bases. So then I can use the overspray of white as a general blending and softening agent. It's a bit anticlimactic now, but here is the white step. I use white in gentle, transparent to semi-transparent passes, but I'm more aggressive on weapons and armors, where white is not only an abstract high value, but a proper local tone that also creates a nice temperature contrast and a gentle sense of volume with the warmer ivory underneath. In the spirit of setting all the basic tones, I briefly move to the wet palette to give a single, solid coat of paint to the bronze bolts, the bright green crystals, the black inserts and heraldry, and the grey elements. These parts are so small that, at this stage, I can completely ignore their volumetry and just express it later with a few brushstrokes. Still, I quickly break the flat monotony of black with the airbrush, because that requires a more gentle touch that I don't plan to use at all in the later stages. As often happens in my speed painting projects, oils are the magic jack-of-all-trades tool that brings sense into my chromatic and value shenanigans, literally and physically connecting all the cut corners and shortcuts. Here I'm going to focus on their role in this specific workflow, but if you're not familiar with oil paints, I have a bunch of videos deep diving into the technical and procedural details of the medium. They are so key to this way of speed painting that all the previous steps are basically preparatory work for this stage, with a particular focus on the high values of my basing, that I need super light to keep the scheme receptive to the upcoming load of new pigments, and their mid to dark values. And that's literally what I have on the palette. Mid to dark, super saturated staining colors that are going to gently connect the high value lights that I already have in place with the mid luminosity shadows of the primer, while boosting at the same time the vibrancy and saturation of the whole scheme, thanks to this filter/light wash application. The high pigment count of good quality oils fills the sparse microdotting of the airbrush, bringing together the overlapped layers, and giving a lovely, soft and organic feel to the paint job that's perfect for natural and living materials. Their high saturation works like a pass of inks or contrast paints, boosting every color while making them more rich and complex with the semi-transparent layering. And it's super easy to use them to set a quick dark definition, even when you need more precise applications. Well, these pin washes don't look super precise, but in this case the sloppiness is very intentional. I'm going for a weathered, slightly dirty look on armors and weapons, so I'm going to use that halo of paint around the panel lines, part as weathering and part as bluish shading / extra tone on the boring white. Using oils, the possibility to remove paint basically opens the ability to paint in reverse through subtraction. So after a bit of very deliberate cleaning of the excess of paint and a few reapplications of tones in specific spots, I'm left with a rich canvas full of midtones, shadows and mild lights that need only a bit of brushwork to get a more painterly character and extra sharper light definition. My palette is super focused and essential because this is efficient speed painting, but even if just a little and with a limited palette, at this late, more visible and characterful stage, I always like to mix my custom tones, while at the beginning, for the foundational stuff, I'm totally for a simple, out-of-the-tube approach. It's part a technical requirement, coming from the need to match and bridge the chromatic complexity of all the overlapped stuff underneath, and part a conscious way to keep every project fresh and unique. I may paint another million orange flows, but they'll never look exactly like this one. the 90% organic nature of the Vespids, and the fact that I'm not going to touch the white at all except for a gentle weathering, keep the brushwork super fun and painterly. Because the lack of patterns or the need for any particular sharpness are the key for a more natural look, and in my case, a way to catch the nervous and energetic feel of the illustrations. I focus on stippling with a bunch of quick touches of different sizes and intensity, mainly hitting high and protruding details and edges to increase definition and readability, but also messing with the lower and darker parts if I find a spot that's too static and boring. I love to work with black and grey, but they objectively require more attention and work. So again, thanks to those previous quick main volumes applied with the airbrush, I can keep the work on these parts quick and simple, focusing basically only on edges and light scratches. With all the major pieces in place, I can have some fun with rusty chipped paint and weathered edges. Light weathering, especially used like a dark edge highlight, is a great way to break the monotony of white, especially in speed painting, where you can't really invest a bunch of time to work on the complexity of the shades of white. At least, personally, I'm quicker and I have more fun painting scratches than glazing subtle transitions that are difficult to see from the distance of the battlefield anyway. The trick is to use the most fluid and most opaque paint you have, in combo with a brush with a good point and a chunky belly, that can act as a long-lasting reservoir of paint, basically becoming like a needle-pointed marker. Think about it like painting a low-stake, bad and disconnected edge highlight, and you are going to have a great time and great results. And just to break even more the monotony, and reinstate in the frontal parts the orange-green contrast that I established between light and shadow, and bodies and wings, I add a soft green glow from the crystals with a saturated green ink, and a couple of gentle puffs of the airbrush. And here is the final result. 4 hours of work, with a big help and passive cheat coming from the simple organic nature of the models that perfectly fits this kind of workflow, the magic of oils, and my taste for painterly, a bit impressionistic takes on gaming models. Don't worry, we are still going to have a bunch of fantasy projects, with also, spoiler alert, a big revival of Mordheim. But I want to explore sci-fi painting a bit more, also outside the GW bubble. So stay tuned for all this upcoming stuff and a very gamey winter. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. Remember that you can ask me anything down below with a comment, you can follow my projects during the week using one of my socials, or watch me painting live on Twitch. Check the schedule of the streams on the Twitch homepage. And if you want to support my work, check my Patreon page and join the community, or maybe ask for a commission. See you next week, guys!